What is up, everybody? It is the Epic VFM here, and it's time for a brand new segment of The Verdict for all of you guys out there. This time, it is my review of Skyfall 007. Just came out today, actually. I saw it at a midnight showing last night. So, let's get right down to it. How do I feel about Skyfall 007? Well, this is the third film that stars Daniel Craig in the title role of James Bond. Now, right from the get-go, one thing that if you've ever been a Bond fan, if you've seen a lot of James Bond movies in the past, one of the things that those types of films are known for are the kind of introductory sequences, which is the very beginning, that little kind of cool title sequence that they normally have, that usually has some sort of cool, classy music to it, and some interesting visuals. Now, while Skyfall from the very get-go actually has a cool, visually appealing type of intro, in some respects, I'm not too much of a big fan of the title song actually called Skyfall. Within the past two other Daniel Craig Bond movies, they've never really had kind of like, I want to say any sort of kind of like theme song that actually had the name of the movie in it. It's very, very a classic Bonds, like, how Goldfinger had the actual word Goldfinger, or GoldenEye, same thing by Tina Turner, if you've ever seen that movie in the past before. But this one kind of goes back to that style, but the song is just not very good. I mean, I get the idea of what it's trying to play into, like all the themes that are going on in the movie, but it never really resonated with me when I was actually watching it. I wasn't getting hyped up, I wasn't getting excited to actually see a new Bond film when I actually saw this introductory sequence. But I kind of, bore with it and had a little bit of patience and moved past it. So, how's the actual movie? Well, the main story of the entire movie is that there's a rogue agent or somebody that's actually targeting, specific MI6, agents, including 00 agents or whatnot. They're actually trying to kill M. You find out later on in the movie, without getting too much spoilers into it, it's an actual rogue agent from MI6, or at least an agent that kind of, left MI6 or was given up. But with that being said, the other kind of like subplot that's going on is that this is kind of like an exploration of Daniel Craig's origins, as James Bond when he was a young kid. The actual name Skyfall, the actual title of the movie, comes from the actual place that James Bond grew up as a young boy. Because James Bond originally is an orphan, and he actually got sent in, actually got drafted into MI6. Now, it gets to a whole bunch of other stuff on top of that. But a couple of the things that should be noted. This is another one of those Bond movies, like the other two Daniel Craig Bond movies I'm going to get into in a minute, that really explore a lot of Bond's origins and try to match up with a lot of the classic Bond, staples, including Moneypenny. If you guys have ever seen any of the classic, like, Pierce Brosnan, or any of the, Roger Moore or Sean Connery Bond movies, you'll know who Moneypenny is. But also there's other things that happen along the way that kind of match up to those classic Bond movies. Now, this is my biggest problem with Daniel Craig as James Bond. He's not a bad Bond as far as acting, as far as persona on screen. The problem is, though, is the writing that they keep giving him. He's always in all his movies, even though I thought Casino Royale was fantastic and Quantum of Solace was okay, this one is kind of because it kind of plays a little bit on the same themes where it's exploring Bond's origins. And I think it's already about time that we kind of move past that, because Daniel Craig, he's the most kind of, publicized Bond, or the most exposed Bond out of all the James Bond movies. You could argue Sean Connery a little bit more, but as far as Bond being in other mediums within that same Bond universe, Daniel Craig has really been put out there, including not only the movies, but the video games and everything else on top of that. But he's never really had a chance to really just be Bond and play around with it. Pierce Brosnan is a perfect example. If you've ever seen the movie The World's Not Enough, we kind of have the little staples here and there of, classic Bond films. But he's always had the role where he's able to kind of input his own stuff into the role, aside from the action and all the kind of like, gimmicky type of sayings and whatnot, like shaken not stirred. Daniel Craig hasn't really had that. He's been kind of tied down and held back. He's a much more actiony and much more, fighting and kind of, active Bond physically, but he's not really, doesn't have that swagger yet that like Sean Connery or Roger Moore had back in the day. Daniel Craig hasn't been allowed to actually do that with the material that they've been giving him. Now, you can argue, like I said, in some of the video games or whatnot, like Bloodstone 007, he's been able to kind of, lend his voice, and actually his version of Bond been able to kind of, get a little more breathing room. But in the movies, not so much. So what I'm hoping is for the next Bond film, because there's definitely going to be another Bond film, and he's probably going to star in it, that he gets a little bit much more breathing room now that we got to pass all the origin stuff and all the stuff that's already been established in the past. One other thing I should note, which is kind of a little bit annoying, but, it was kind of cool to see. They actually had a couple nods to old classical movies of the franchise, including a special car that actually shows up. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but when you see it, if you've watched James Bond movies before, you'll go nuts, as well as also some other characters that appear, for the very first time in this type of Bond universe. But with that being said, overall, is the movie good? If you go in and you haven't really kind of seen a lot of James Bond films in the past, you'll probably enjoy it. If you're looking for something a little bit much more better as far as, an intricate and new type of James Bond experience, this one may disappoint you a little bit like it did me, because I was expecting some really good things to come out of this movie. But again, Daniel Craig just keeps getting tied down to a lot of the material that these scribes keep giving him. We've, again, in Casino Royale and even a little bit of Quantum of Solace, we've already established the origin of James Bond. We've already explored it a little bit, in those films. I don't think we need to kind of beat the dead horse on this one. But with that being said, that's just my opinion, guys. Leave your comments and video responses. I don't mind. Just keep it civil. Let me know what you guys think of Skyfall 007 if you've seen the movie already, or if you're actually going to plan on actually seeing the movie. So, I'm Venomousfatman. This has been The Verdict. That's what I think of 007 Skyfall, or Skyfall 007, however you want to say it. And I will see you guys again soon. Peace out. Stay epic, everybody.